Now again, I'm going to trim the red, kind of a reddish orange, but I'm going to trim the red because, see, like along the top of the engine, you want a nice crisp red line. And all these areas, again, as I say that machined look, you want it to not go outside the lines. And see, when you put the red here, as I pull this template away, you will start to see the evidence of the separation line of the red and the orange being separated. And one thing I realized, which it's don't have any real worry going back, but I didn't do the handrails. See, and there's no real rule of what order to do this in. But if you forget to do the handrails, it's usually a good idea to go back and do them before, like, you do the black, because it's generally a good rule to do the lightest colors first. That is kind of an important rule that I actually should have maybe stressed as I was starting what exactly I was doing, because there is a little bit of an order to this. And you can kind of see that, see, the handrails are now done. And I also didn't do the side sill. The good thing about the side sill in a couple of these areas is that the side sill is going to have black underneath it and red on top with a black brake. So you don't need to really at this moment separate it. But see, as you start to look at it, don't you kind of get this feeling of, wow, this is really starting to look like the Florida East Coast colors. And as you do get that kind of feeling, this stage of the drawing really kind of becomes fun. And the further you go along, the more fun it kind of becomes. You kind of get a little bit of anxiety built up about the fact that, wow, and this is really going to be a nice Florida East Coast engine. And all the patience of as I have to admit, I did it a little faster than normal, but all the patience of 2 hours or more of drawing all those pencil lines at this point of the drawing really feel like they pay off, because especially now as I color this part, you really get the feeling. Oops, real quick, I should go around that Florida East Coast logo. And see, this is where it is a great idea to use a circle, because you want that logo to be tight around the edges. And don't worry about coloring in the sea and the sun. And so, as you start to paint the red, you can really start to get the feeling that, wow, this is going to look like a Florida East Coast engine. Generally, the rule that it's not even a rule, it's so much what has to do with me being right-handed, I imagine. But what I generally do is I hold the drawing and the way I'm holding it, and I go along all the edges I can that are on the top of the engine. As you can see, there's all these straight edges like this. and then I flip the drawing over. That way I can now do all the straight edges on the other side, because probably one of the most important parts of painting is that you keep the edges straight. And as I do this edge straight, I fill in all the part in the middle. And then I do the straight edge, and I fill in. And I do the straight edge, and I fill in. I do the straight edge, and I fill in. And I do the straight edge, and I fill in. And I do the straight edge, and I fill in. And I do the straight edge, and now the logo's here, so you kind of want to be careful a little bit around the logo. But we did trim around it. And do all the straight edges around it. And again, a lot of practice, so just practice all you can around this. And the more that you finish drawings, the more you'll want to practice. Because the truth of the matter is, this is a very exciting part of drawing. See the straight edge, and then finish. And the straight edge, and fill in. And this is, all this is I'm doing on this red is the first coat. Straight edge, and fill in. And the straight edge. Because it's very exciting. Like these Florida East Coast engines, you know, so far there's been the one, you know, coming out. And the fact that, you know, you can draw it already, I mean, you've seen it. Most of us haven't even gotten to take pictures. And now we do the second coat. And again, it's the same basic process. You do the straight edge, and now I haven't done the straight edge along the top. So I'm just doing the straight edge along the bottom. This is harder to see what I'm doing because it's all red. But it's sort of a reverse of what I did there. But straight edge and fill. Straight edge and fill. And I know you basically probably can't even begin to see what I'm doing, but you just kind of have to trust that I'm just doing straight edge and fill. It's the same thing I did on the white. All this really does, though, is that this just sort of makes the color, first of all, it makes it a lot richer. And especially on a big, shiny new engine like this, you want the color to be as rich as possible. And as you kind of watch my hand, it is the same process. It's the straight edge and the fill. And 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 then basically, then what you kind of do, which is sort of important, you go up to little areas, like around logos usually, and along edges. Just kind of look. Where did I miss? And this is really hard to see in the video. But, you know, you'll see it when you draw. You just kind of look for, and you'll get better and better at seeing this. Just look for little places that are white or just lesser bright. Now I'm going to work on the underframe. And just like everywhere else on the train, the underframe, you start to trim. Like this is where, as I said, the precision in the steps pays off, because you trim around the handrails and you trim around the steps, and having them being nice and evenly spaced makes them look very precise. And you trim around the snowplow, and see the snowplow all sticks out, and all those details that stick out, you're going to be glad that you made them, you know, very precise. And here's where you trim around the trucks. And basically what we're doing here is the same basic process as we did with the red, only we're doing it in black on the underframe. And if you wanted to, when you were doing the red part, you could do this trimming at that same time. I just mentally don't do it. But if you like doing all your trimming at the same time, there's nothing wrong with that. For some reason, I just don't, but and as I did that trimming, let's write the word Florida East Coast up here. And as we do the Florida East Coast lettering, the biggest thing about this is that you want to keep the words as straight as you can. And please don't do your lettering as fast as I'm doing it here. I've done lettering several thousand times. But this is where all that measuring that you did pays off. Because really, all you're really doing is you're going over the lettering that you stenciled out. But the thing about it is that now you're committing to that measuring with ink. So you want to try your best to, in doing that, keep it very smooth and steady. And I'm using a ballpoint pen, which is just a very basic tool. I've used them from the very beginning. And the thing about it is that if you look at the Florida East Coast, the lettering is a little thinner where it says Florida East Coast, but the numbers are a little wider. So where the numbers are a little wider, I'm going to go around them with a brush. This is a very delicate job. I would almost just recommend do as I say, not as I do. But I would just recommend going around these twice with a ballpoint pen instead of doing what I just did.